the news tonight, the Regent opens the gaming lab in Aqaba to enhance the digital game industry in the kingdom. The terrorist convicted in the killing of 5 intelligence department officers is sentenced to death. And the United Nations is pushing for a humanitarian pause in the fighting in the Syrian city of Aleppo. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein, the Regent, opened the gaming lab in Aqaba. The facility was set up by the King Abdullah II Fund for Development as part of the 2011 Royal Initiative launched in Amman and Irbid to turn Jordan into a regional digital gaming hub. The lab aims at providing school and university students in the southern governorates with the necessary skills to develop digital games through courses taught by experts in the field. The lab will also play a role in inspiring young people to come up with innovative ideas and gain a skill that can generate income. Minister of Planning and International Cooperation and President of the Fund, Hamad Fakhouri, briefed the Regent on the Fund's vision to encourage innovation for youth across the country through learning and spreading the design of electronic games. The Crown Prince, who toured the lab's hall and facilities, stressed the need to galvanize the young people's creative digital gaming energies and develop their talents at school to raise their participation in the industry. He was also at a hall where 25 male and female students are on a training course on making and marketing digital games. These students talked to the Crown Prince about their experiences and the lab's role in enhancing their skills. Prime Minister Hani al-Mulki said the state has the duty to protect all its citizens. He vowed the government would have zero tolerance with assaults on civil service officials or employees. Mulki spoke during a meeting with Jordan Radio and Television Corporation Board Chairman George Hawatmeh and Director General of the Income and Sale Tax Department Bashar Sabir. Both directors were assaulted by employees at their agencies who were protesting administrative decision-taking against them. Hawatmeh was taken to hospital after being struck by the television employee, while the tax department chief came under attack from an employee protesting his transfer to another branch. Such attack and irresponsible behaviors are wholly rejected by Jordanian society, and they would, in the first place, harm their perpetrators, Mulki stressed. Mulki, who was accompanied on his visit to the television station and tax department by the Ministers of Interior and Media Affairs, said Jordan television should remain the kingdom's mirror and bright image. What happened is shameful and is a crime punishable by the law, which has the final say in such cases, he said. The Prime Minister said assaults against public servants is immoral and is an assault against the law and the state's authority. The Cabinet recently endorsed an amendment of the Penal Code that stiffens the punishment for assaulting a public sector employee on duty. The State Security Court sentenced to death by hanging the terrorist convicted of attacking the General Intelligence Department's office in Al-Baqa in June, in which 5 servicemen were killed. The court prosecutor general, Judge Brigadier General Ziad Hadwan, said the court found Mahmoud Masharfe guilty on the 2 charges: committing terrorist act that killed people and using weapons to execute the attacks. The State Security Court ruled that Masharfe will be put to death by hanging for the 2 charges, which were in violation of the terrorism prevention law. The court also sentenced the second defendant, Sami Abu Omar, to 1 year in prison after reducing his charge of selling weapons for illegal use from a crime to misdemeanor. Airstrikes believed carried out by Russian warplanes hit two camps housing displaced people west of the Syrian city of Aleppo and near the Turkish border. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group said the strikes killed at least 2 children and wounded 30 people near the town of Atayirib, which is in rebel-held territories. It said several tents were damaged or burned in the strikes. The monitoring groups said the jets were believed to be Russian because of their color and the fact that there were several planes flying in formation. Meantime, the United Nations said intensive diplomacy was going on to try to agree a humanitarian pause in the fighting in the Syrian city of Aleppo. The UN hoped to see an agreement for a comprehensive humanitarian plan in the next few days. UN Deputy Special Envoy for Syria, Ramzi Izzeddin Ramzi, said U.S.-Russia negotiations were ongoing and the United Nations was still committed to its goal of holding a new round of talks between the Syrian government and opposition towards the end of August. Ramzi said the United States and Russia were in intensive discussions to shore up Syria's collapsed nationwide truce. Their military experts were still trying to agree a cooperation plan that would unlock the entire solution.
We are ready, willing and able to go if there are pauses in the fighting. We have made it very clear for the parties, including the Russian Federation, after their proposal for humanitarian corridors, what is needed for us to be able to go, and there is intensive diplomatic activity at the moment to enable such an operation.
Former Governor of Istanbul, Hüseyin Avni Mutlu, and 10 other detainees were taken to hospital for medical checks before they are transferred to a courthouse where they are expected to be formally charged. The 11 men were detained as part of a wide crackdown following the July 15 failed coup attempt. Under tight security, they were led into the state hospital amid shouts from angry protesters. More than 60,000 people in the military, judiciary, civil service and education have been detained. They were suspended or placed under investigation for alleged links to the network of Fethullah Gulen since the July 15 coup, prompting fears among Western allies and right groups of a witch hunt. Gulen is accused of orchestrating the failed coup. A U.S. woman was killed and 5 other people injured by a knife-wielding man with suspected mental health issues who went on a rampage in central London. Police said there was no evidence that the attack was related to terrorism. Armed police were called this morning after a Norwegian man of Somali origin with a knife started to attack people in London's Russell Square. The victim, a U.S. citizen in her 60s, was treated at the scene but was pronounced dead a short time later. Another woman and 4 men were treated in hospital, though 3 of them were discharged. A cordon has been set up around the scene, which is close to the site of the 2005 suicide bombing. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry defended the Obama administration payment of $400 million in cash to Iran. He denied it was a ransom for the release of American prisoners by Tehran or tied to the Iran nuclear deal. Kerry told a news conference in Buenos Aires the payment, which was part of a long-standing Iranian claim at the Iran-U.S. Claim Tribunal in The Hague, was negotiated on a separate track from the Iran nuclear deal. The White House announced on January 17 it was releasing $400 million in funds frozen since 1981, plus $1.3 billion in interest owed to Iran.
First of all, the United States of America does not pay ransom and does not negotiate ransoms with any country. We never have, and we're not doing that now. It is not our policy. That's number one. Number two, this story is not a new story. This was announced by the President of the United States himself at the very time that this transaction and the nuclear deal was being put together, and he made it clear that there was a separate negotiation track, a separate negotiation that happened to come to be settled at the time, which represents a restoration to Iran of its own money.
At least 5 foreign tourists and their driver were wounded in Afghanistan in an attack by gunmen on their convoy as it passed through Herat province. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. Government officials said the group included at least 6 British citizens, 3 Americans and a German. At least 3 Britons were wounded, but the nationalities of the other victims were not immediately known. An Interior Ministry spokesman said the convoy, reportedly escorted by security forces, was on its way from Bamiyan province in central Afghanistan to the city of Herat when it was attacked. Officials described the foreigners as tourists. Here at home, in a large, colorful tent in the capital, audiences are treated to a circus performance featuring death-defying acrobatics and tricks by exotic animals. The show, entitled The Great Vegas Circus, is on a tour of the region with performances held in Qatar, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, and finally here in Amman. General Manager of the Dubai-based Evento Management, Nicolas Obeid, said he wanted to bring circuses back to Jordan after an absence of almost 10 years. The extravaganza included clown acts, puppy tricks, and a breathtaking high-wire act when 7 performers formed a human pyramid as they walked a tightrope. The main draw of the event is the lion performance, where a trainer interacts with 4 rare white lions from South Africa.
Sensational!
On the eve of the Olympic Games, crowds gathered on a Rio beach to catch a glimpse of Brazilian surfing legend Rico de Souza taking the Olympic torch into the surf. The event was full of symbolism, coming a day after the International Olympic Committee added surfing to the program for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Part of the IOC's thinking behind including surfing, as well as skateboarding, climbing, karate and baseball, is the next Summer Olympics is to attract young urban viewers, a strategy that seems to echo in Brazil. Marking tomorrow's opening ceremony in Rio, Beijing's National Stadium, where the 2008 Olympic Games opening ceremony took place, is currently lit up with the colors and logo of the 2016 Rio Olympics. The show lit up the plaza around the stadium, which was packed with people taking pictures. Even in Tokyo, which will host the 2020 Olympic Games, the city's Skytree Tower is illuminated The Gulf of Aqaba should expect very hot conditions tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. The Regent opens the gaming lab in Aqaba to enhance the digital game industry in the kingdom. The terrorist convicted in the killing of 5 intelligence department officers is sentenced to death. And the United Nations is pushing for a humanitarian pause in the fighting in the Syrian city of Aleppo. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.